Hungry and homeless, she begged for a corner, until the rich rancher's daughter called her Mama. Elena walked slowly down the dusty streets of the small town, her thin coat wrapped tightly around her shoulders. The wind was sharp and cold, cutting through the holes in her worn clothing. She clutched a small, tattered bag close to her chest which held the few belongings she still had: some old clothes, a notebook with torn pages, and a photograph that had yellowed with age. It was her only connection to the life she had lost. Every step she took left footprints in the dirt, footprints that would soon be covered by the footsteps of others, people who were too busy to notice the shadow that moved quietly along the street. Her stomach growled again, a sharp reminder that she had not eaten in nearly a full day. She had wandered from one end of town to the other, asking for coins, leftover bread, or even just a scrap of kindness. Most people looked away, some muttered under their breath, making her feel even more invisible. A few children threw stones at her as she passed, laughing cruelly, not understanding the pain that sometimes comes with hunger and fear. Elena kept her head down, not wanting to draw attention to herself. She had learned long ago that pleading or crying often earned nothing but scorn. She paused for a moment near the corner of a busy street, leaning against the wall of a closed shop. Her eyes followed the people who hurried past. There were women with bright scarves tied neatly around their heads, men in clean shirts heading to work, and children skipping along with their lunches tucked safely in their hands. She felt a pang of longing as she watched them. The simple pleasure of having food to eat, a warm bed to sleep in, and a family waiting at home. These were things she had once taken for granted. Now, they seemed like treasures in a world that had forgotten her. Elena's thoughts drifted to the past, to a time before the streets and the hunger. She remembered a small apartment filled with laughter, the smell of fresh bread in the morning, and the comfort of having someone to call family. Life had once been ordinary and simple, but one tragedy after another had pulled her further into the shadows. First, her job disappeared when the factory closed, leaving her without income. Then, a sudden illness had taken her mother, the person she had depended on most. With no savings and no relatives who could help, she found herself pushed out into the streets, a place where survival was uncertain and kindness was rare. A cold breeze blew down the street, rustling the papers scattered along the ground. Elena shivered, pulling her coat tighter. She had found a small corner near the back of a cafe to rest for a few minutes, away from the busy crowd. But even that had been disturbed by the owners who wanted the area cleaned. She had learned that public spaces were not really hers, no matter how tired or hungry she was. The world seemed to have been divided into two categories, those who had and those who had nothing. She knew she belonged to the latter, a category she had not chosen, but could not escape. Elena's mind wandered as she sat down on the cold pavement, leaning against the brick wall. She watched a pair of pigeons peck at crumbs on the ground, their small movements so full of life and energy. For a moment she envied them. They were free, at least in a way she could no longer be. She sighed deeply, closing her eyes and letting herself imagine warmth, even if only for a few seconds. In her imagination, she was sitting in a sunlit room, a warm cup of tea in her hands, and the soft laughter of children in the background. She almost smiled at the memory, but the pang of hunger in her stomach brought her back to reality. She had tried asking for food from the nearby market, hoping someone might offer her even a small loaf of bread or a piece of fruit. Most of the shopkeepers shook their heads or muttered that they could not help. She was used to the rejection, but it never got easier. Each no chipped away a little more at her spirit. Still, she refused to give up. She knew that somewhere, somehow, someone might show kindness, and she clung to that hope like a fragile lifeline. As the afternoon sun began to lower in the sky, Elena decided to move on. She could not stay in one place for too long, not only because of the cold but also because some townspeople would not tolerate her presence. She walked slowly, her feet aching from hours on the hard pavement. Her eyes searched for a quiet place, somewhere she could rest and gather her strength before night fell. She noticed a small alley beside a large, gated property. It was overgrown with weeds, the fence slightly broken, and the shadows stretched long and dark. She stepped inside carefully, hoping that the quiet corner would be enough to shield her from curious eyes. Sitting down against the wall, she rested her head on her knees. The sounds of the town, the distant chatter, the clanging of metal from the blacksmith, and the occasional bark of a dog, faded as she drifted into her thoughts. She thought about the small acts of kindness that had kept her going. A stranger offering a sandwich once, a child giving her a coin with a shy smile. Those moments, brief and fleeting, had reminded her that not all people were cruel, that somewhere in the world compassion still existed. She clung to those memories, letting them fill the emptiness that hunger and loneliness had created. Hours passed, and the alley grew colder and darker. The sky turned shades of orange and pink as the sun set, and the first stars began to appear. Elena hugged her bag close, trying to find some warmth in the chill. She wondered where she would sleep that night, knowing that the streets offered little comfort. She thought about the old church down the road, where she sometimes found shelter behind the building, or the bus station, where a bench might provide a place to lie down for a few hours. Nothing was guaranteed, and she knew she had to keep moving, always alert to the dangers of the night. Despite the fear and exhaustion, Elena felt a small spark of determination. She had survived this long, and she would survive a little longer. She reminded herself that her worth was not measured by the opinions of strangers, nor by the life she had lost. Each day she endured, each step she took, was proof of her strength and resilience. Even in the darkness there was hope, even if faint. As the town lights flickered on, casting long shadows across the streets, Elena stood up slowly. She brushed the dust from her coat and tightened her scarf around her neck. With careful steps, she began walking toward the outskirts of town, searching for a place to rest and for someone who might offer her even a small kindness. The night was quiet now, and though her heart was heavy, she carried a glimmer of hope. Somewhere ahead, life might offer her a chance to belong again, to be seen not as a shadow but as a person worthy of care and compassion. For now she would walk, she would endure, and she would hold on to the fragile hope that tomorrow might bring something better. A warm meal, a kind word, a safe corner to rest, and perhaps, just perhaps, the spark of a new beginning. The next day Elena walked through the outskirts of town, her steps slow but determined. Her stomach ached with hunger, and her feet were sore from yesterday's long walk. She kept her eyes on the ground, watching for coins or leftover scraps. But the streets were quiet, almost too quiet. The shops had opened, and the townspeople moved with purpose, their minds on work and daily tasks. No one noticed her as she passed, just as she had expected. Eventually, Elena reached the edge of the town, where the pavement ended and the dirt road began to wind through wide fields. Beyond the field stretched a large ranch, its fences tall and well-kept, with horses grazing in the pastures. She had seen the ranch from a distance many times before, imagining the life that existed behind its gates. There was food there, warmth, and people who seemed safe, though their world felt completely separate from hers. She would never have dreamed of going closer, until she heard a small, cheerful voice calling her name. "Elena," the voice said. Startled, she looked up, searching for the source. At first she thought she had imagined it. But then, from behind a clump of trees near the edge of the ranch, a small girl emerged. She had golden hair tied in a neat braid, and bright, curious eyes that seemed to look straight into Elena's heart. In her hand, she held a small brown paper bag. "I brought this for you!" the girl exclaimed, running closer. "Mama said I shouldn't talk to strangers, but you're not really a stranger, are you? You're my friend." Elena blinked, unsure what to say. She had not been addressed so kindly in a long time. Hunger and exhaustion made her feel vulnerable, yet something in the girl's voice made her heart tighten. The girl smiled up at her, offering the bag. Inside was a sandwich, wrapped neatly in wax paper, and a small apple. The sight of food made Elena's mouth water, but more than that, it was the gesture itself, the thoughtfulness, the care, that touched her deeply. She knelt slowly to take the bag, her hands trembling slightly. "Thank you," Elena whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. I don't know what to say." The girl giggled. "You don't have to say anything." "Just eat!" She plopped down on the grass beside Elena, her small feet kicking at the dirt. I made sure Mama didn't see me. She thinks I shouldn't talk to strangers, but I told her you're special. Elena felt a wave of emotion she could barely control. Tears threatened to spill, but she blinked them back. She could not remember the last time anyone had called her special. Hunger gnawed at her, but now there was something else, something she had not felt in a long time. Warmth, like the sun touching her skin after months of cold. She unwrapped the sandwich slowly, savoring the sight and smell of it before taking a small bite. It was simple, plain, but it was enough to make her heart sing. The girl watched her with wide eyes. "You like it?" she asked eagerly.
"Yes," Elena said, smiling faintly. "It's very kind of you." "I'm Lila. What's your name?"
"Elena," she replied, her voice gaining strength as she said it aloud. The sound of her own name in someone else's mouth felt strange and comforting.
"I'm glad I found you, Elena," Lila said.
"I was walking by the trees, and I saw you sitting there. I thought, baby, you were hungry. I always bring snacks when I can. Would you like to sit with me a little while?" Elena hesitated. The offer was so simple, so human, that it felt almost unreal. People had avoided her, looked past her, or treated her like she was invisible. And here was this small girl, fearless and full of kindness, inviting her to sit and talk. Slowly, she nodded. They sat together on the soft grass near the fence, sharing the sandwich and apple. Elena found herself talking quietly, telling Lila a little about her life without giving too much away, just enough for the girl to understand that she was not always this way. Lila listened with wide eyes, nodding seriously, as though every word Elena said was important. "You know," Lila said thoughtfully, "I think you could be my mama." Elena froze. She looked at the girl, unsure she had heard correctly. The words hung in the air, light and innocent, yet heavier than anything anyone had ever said to her in years. "My mama," Elena whispered, her throat tight. Lila nodded eagerly. "Yes, you're kind, and you take care of people. That's what a mama does. And I think maybe you could help me with things, like teaching me how to make bread or how to talk to the horses." She giggled at the thought. Elena felt her eyes welling with tears. No one had ever called her Mama before. She had always longed to care for someone, to belong somewhere, but life had denied her the chance. Now this small, fearless girl was giving her that gift. She reached out slowly and took Lila's hand in hers, squeezing it gently.
I don't know if I can," she admitted softly. "I've had a very hard life.
I don't have a home. I don't have much at all." Lila shook her head, her braids swinging.
"That doesn't matter. Mamas don't have to be perfect.
They just have to care, and you do care.
"I know it." For the first time in many months, Elena laughed. A soft, shaky laugh that surprised even her. The sound felt like sunlight on her face, warming parts of her heart that had grown cold.
She realized that she did care, more than she had allowed herself to admit. She cared about the little girl sitting beside her, about her safety, her happiness, and even her own ability to rise again from despair. The afternoon passed slowly as they sat together, talking about small things. Lila told Elena about her school, her friends, and the horses she loved to ride. Elena listened, laughing quietly at some of the girl's funny stories and marveling at her curiosity and energy. For the first time in a long while, Elena forgot about the gnawing emptiness in her stomach, replaced instead by the warmth of human connection. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, Elena realized she had to leave. Nights in the streets were dangerous, and she had no place to sleep. She stood slowly, brushing the grass from her coat, and looked at the girl who had changed her day so completely.
"I should go,"
Elena said softly. "I don't have anywhere to stay, and it will get cold soon." Lila looked disappointed but determined. "I'll come see you tomorrow. And the next day, you can sit with me and tell me more stories. And maybe Maybe you'll teach me something new." Elena knelt down to the girl's height, her heart aching at the thought of leaving. She brushed a strand of hair from Lila's face and smiled. I think I would like that very much," she said. The girl's face lit up, and she gave Elena a quick hug before running back toward the ranch house. Elena watched her go, a mixture of hope and worry swirling inside her. She felt something she had not felt in a long time. Possibility. Maybe, just maybe, life could offer her a second chance, not through money or comfort, but through simple human kindness and trust. As the evening settled in, Elena found a small sheltered spot behind a stack of crates near the edge of town. She curled up, her bag serving as a pillow, and thought about the day. She had no home, no family, and yet, in a single afternoon, she had been reminded that she was not invisible. A small girl had seen her, not for her tattered clothes or weary face, but for her heart, and in that recognition, Elena felt a flicker of something she had not felt in years. Hope. She closed her eyes and allowed herself to dream, imagining a life where she could be more than a shadow on the streets, a life where someone like Lila, could call her mama and mean it. For the first time in a long while, she believed that tomorrow might bring more than hunger and cold. It might bring warmth, laughter, and maybe even a place to belong. And with that thought, Elena drifted into a restless but peaceful sleep, the distant lights of the ranch shining softly in the night. The morning sun broke over the small town, casting golden light across the streets and fields. Elena stirred from her makeshift bedding behind the crates near the edge of town, stretching stiff muscles and blinking against the brightness. She had slept lightly, her thoughts filled with the memory of Lila's cheerful face and the sandwich the girl had shared the day before. That small act of kindness had stayed with her, warming her heart like the first sunlight after a long winter. Elena's stomach growled, reminding her that she needed food. She had little to sustain her, and though she had found small scraps before, the town seemed emptier that morning. She wrapped her coat tightly around her and started walking slowly toward the outskirts again, her eyes scanning for anything that might be left behind. A dropped coin, a bit of bread, or even a small gift from someone who cared. Each step was careful. Her shoes were worn thin, and the stones in the dirt road hurt her feet with every stride. As she walked near the edge of the ranch, she saw Lila waiting near the fence, just as she had the day before. The girl's eyes lit up when she saw Elena, and she waved energetically.
"Good morning, Mama!" Lila called.
The words struck Elena in a way she could not fully explain. They were innocent, yet filled with trust and warmth. She paused for a moment, surprised by the comfort that simple word brought her. "Good morning, Lila," Elena replied softly, a small smile tugging at her lips. The nickname felt strange on her tongue, yet it also filled her with a sense of belonging she had not felt in years.
"I brought breakfast for us," Lila said proudly, holding up a small cloth bag. "Mom packed some sandwiches, but I made sure not to tell her I was giving them to you."
Elena accepted the bag with trembling hands. She opened it carefully and found 2 small sandwiches, a peeled orange and a little bottle of milk. She had not eaten properly in days, and yet she found herself wanting to savor the moment more than the food itself. She bit into the sandwich slowly, enjoying the taste and the thoughtfulness behind it. "You're very kind," Elena said quietly. "I don't know how to thank you." Lila giggled.
"You don't have to. I like helping you. You're my mama now, remember? Mamas help each other."
Elena laughed softly at the girl's logic, and for a few moments they ate in silence, enjoying the quiet morning together. Birds chirped in the nearby trees, and a soft breeze carried the smell of grass and flowers from the ranch. Elena felt her heart lighten in a way it had not in months. The kindness of a child, so pure and unreserved, had reminded her that even in the hardest times, people could be good and generous. After breakfast, Lila tugged at Elena's hand. "Come with me. I want to show you the horses." Elena hesitated, thinking of the warning she had learned about staying near private property. But Lila's eyes were wide with excitement, and her hand was warm in Elena's. Something in the child's trust convinced Elena that it would be safe. She nodded, and together they walked along the fence line toward the ranch. The horses grazed in the open pasture, their coats shining in the sunlight, Elena had not been this close to such animals in years. She marveled at their size and gentleness, reaching out to stroke the soft mane of a brown mare that bent its head toward her. Lila giggled and pointed to a small foal, who trotted awkwardly beside its mother. "You can touch him too," Lila encouraged. Elena knelt carefully, letting the foal sniff her hand before giving it a gentle pat. The simple connection with the animals made her feel alive in a way she had not in a long time. Her thoughts drifted to a time when she had loved and cared for small creatures herself, long before the hardships had taken everything from her. Lila began talking about the horses, explaining their names, their habits, and the tricks they could perform. Elena listened closely, her curiosity growing. She asked questions, and Lila's face lit up at each answer she gave. For the first time in a long time, Elena felt useful, like her knowledge and presence mattered. The hunger in her stomach was still there, but it was softened by the warmth growing inside her heart. After a while, they moved to a shady area near a small pond where Lila had set up a few of her toys. They sat together on the grass, and Lila began telling Elena stories about her school, her friends, and the adventures she dreamed of having. Elena listened quietly, enjoying the sound of Lila's voice and the innocence in her tales. It was a relief to be around someone so free from the worries and harshness that had filled her own life.
"You know, Mama," Lila said suddenly, "I think you'd be a really good teacher. You could teach me how to do lots of things I don't know yet."
"Like cooking or taking care of the animals?" Elena smiled, touched by the child's trust. I don't know if I can teach very well," she said softly, "but I would be happy to try."
"I just know it!" Elena felt tears prick her eyes. She had been invisible for so long, ignored by people, treated as someone unimportant.
And yet this little girl saw her in a way that made her heart swell with hope. She realized that caring for someone else, even small ways, could give her life new purpose. The day passed quickly as they played by the pond and explored the edge of the ranch. Elena found herself laughing more than she had in years. Lila's energy was infectious, and the child's joy reminded her that life could still hold moments of beauty, even in the midst of hardship. By the time the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Elena knew she had to leave. Nights were dangerous, and she still had no place to sleep. She felt a pang of sadness at the thought of leaving Lila behind, but the girl seemed undeterred.
"I'll see you tomorrow," Lila promised, hugging Elena tightly. "And the next day, too."
"We can explore more, and maybe I can teach you some things, too." Elena smiled, returning the hug gently. "I'll be here," she said. "I promise." As she walked back to her corner behind the crates, Elena thought about the strange, wonderful turn her life had taken. Just yesterday, she had been alone, hungry, and invisible. Today, a small girl had given her a place in her heart and called her Mama. It was a gift more precious than any coin or scrap of food. The night came, bringing a chill that crept through her thin coat. Elena huddled under a small blanket she had found near the crates, thinking about the day. She realized that for the first time in months, she had hope. She had someone who cared about her, even if it was just a small child. And in that hope, she found strength. Over the next few days, Elena continued to meet Lila at the edge of the ranch. Each visit brought new stories, new laughter, and small lessons about life and love. Elena found herself sharing more of her own experiences, teaching Lila about animals, and listening to the child's endless questions with patience and joy. With each passing day, the bond between them deepened, and Elena began to see a future that she had not dared to imagine. She realized that life was not just about survival. It was about connection, trust, and caring for others. And in giving herself to Lila, even in small ways, Elena found that she was slowly giving herself back a life she had thought was lost forever. One afternoon, as they sat together near the pond, Lila looked at Elena seriously. "Mama, do you think we can always stay friends?" Elena smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Yes, Lila, always." And in that simple promise, Elena understood something she had forgotten long ago. Even in a world that could be cruel and unforgiving, kindness, love, and trust could grow like flowers in the cracks of the hardest stone. And sometimes All it took was one small person to see you, to give you hope, and to call you family. The following morning, Elena woke before the sun had fully risen. The sky was painted in pale shades of pink and orange, and the town was still quiet. She rose from her makeshift bedding behind the crates and stretched her stiff muscles. Her body ached from the cold and from sleeping on the hard ground, but her heart felt lighter than it had in months. She thought of Lila, waiting somewhere near the ranch, her small hand reaching out as if she had been waiting for Elena all along. Elena took a deep breath and wrapped her coat tightly around her. Today she would meet Lila as they had been doing for the past few days. Each visit was becoming more important to her, not just because of the food or the company, but because the little girl had awakened a feeling in her that had been buried for a long time, hope. As she approached the edge of the ranch, she spotted Lila immediately. The girl's golden hair glowed in the morning sun, and her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Mama!" Lila called, running toward her with the same fearless energy as always. Elena smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest that no amount of cold could touch.
"I brought something special today," Lila said, holding out a small bundle wrapped in a napkin.
"Mama, I want you to have this." Elena gently took the bundle and unwrapped it to find a small notebook and a pencil. Lila had carefully saved her allowance and a few scraps of paper to give Elena a place to write her thoughts. The gesture struck Elena deeply. It was not just about the object, but the thought and care behind it. "You made this for me?" Elena asked softly, her voice filled with emotion. "Yes."
"I wanted you to write your stories. You can write anything you want,"
Lila said eagerly.
"You can write about the horses, or the trees, or me." Elena felt tears prick at her eyes. She had longed to tell her story, but no one had ever cared to listen. Now, someone not only wanted to listen, but had given her a place to record her thoughts. She hugged Lila gently.
Thank you, Leela. This means more to me than you can imagine.
The morning passed with laughter and exploration. They walked along the fence line, fed the horses, and dipped their hands in the cool water of a small stream that ran along the ranch. Elena shared small lessons with Lila, teaching her how to feed the horses safely and how to observe the way the animals moved and behaved. Lila listened with rapt attention, asking questions and giggling at every new discovery. But as the sun climbed higher in the sky, Elena sensed that the peace of their routine might soon be disrupted. Lila's mother, Mrs. Konoff Hawthorne, had noticed her daughter lingering near the fence each day and had grown increasingly curious. The little girl had been unusually quiet when talking about her morning adventures, and Mrs. Hawthorne's intuition told her that something, or someone, was influencing her child outside the safety of their home. Later that afternoon, as Elena and Lila sat near the pond, they were suddenly interrupted by a voice that carried both authority and concern. "Lila, dear, what are you doing out here?" Both girls looked up to see Mrs. Hawthorne standing at the edge of the field, her eyes wide with surprise and a hint of worry. Behind her, Mr. Hawthorne approached, his expression calm but serious. Elena felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She had feared this moment, but she had hoped it would not come so soon. "Hello," Helena said softly, standing up slowly. She instinctively took a step back, uncertain how these strangers would react to her presence. "Mrs. Salavera says—" Hawthorne's eyes softened slightly as she looked at Elena, but there was still a cautious distance in her gaze. "And who are you?" she asked, her voice polite but firm. "And why have you been spending time with my daughter?" Elena swallowed hard. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, but she knew she had to speak honestly. "My name is Elena," she said. I don't have a home. I've been living in the streets. Lila, she has been kind to me. She has offered me friendship and care." Mr. Hawthorne studied her quietly, his hands folded in front of him. "Leela, is this true?" he asked gently. Leela nodded eagerly. "Yes, Mama is kind and knows a lot. She's teaching me things, and I like her. She's my mama!" The adults exchanged a look. Mrs. Hawthorne sighed, unsure how to respond. "Elena, I appreciate your honesty," she said slowly. But you must understand my daughter is young, and it is not safe for her to spend time with someone we do not know. You live in the streets, and there are risks." Elena nodded, understanding their concern.
"I know," she said softly. "I will never do anything to hurt her."
"I only wanted to be your friend." Lila stepped forward, her small hand clutching Elena's. "Mama says I can see the good in people."
"And Elena is good. She doesn't want to hurt anyone."
Mrs. Cough. Hawthorne's face softened as she looked at her daughter, then at Elena. "I can see that," she said quietly. "And I can see how much Lila cares for you, but we need to make sure this is safe for both of you." Elena felt a mixture of relief and fear. She had feared rejection, but the woman's words hinted at understanding. She nodded gratefully. "I will respect whatever decision you make," she said. Over the next few days, the Hawthornes watched Elena from a distance. They saw her kindness toward Lila, the care with which she interacted with the girl, and the way she helped around the horses. Slowly, their suspicion began to give way to cautious trust. Mrs. Hawthorne even began leaving small offerings of food near the fence, observing how Elena accepted them with gratitude but without taking more than she needed. Elena found herself walking a careful line. She wanted to maintain her bond with Lila, but also wanted to respect the rules of the family who had taken notice of her. She continued meeting Lila in secret at first, but gradually the Hawthornes began to allow their daughter to spend supervised time with her new friend. Each encounter deepened the trust between all of them. Elena began to notice a change in herself. She no longer felt the same helplessness that had shadowed her every step. Lila's trust and the cautious acceptance of the Hawthornes gave her a sense of purpose she had not felt in years. She was no longer invisible, and for the first time, she felt that she might have a place in this world again. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Elena and Lila sat on the grass near the pond. Lila leaned against Elena, her small hand holding hers tightly. "Mama," she whispered, "do you think we can always be together?" Elena hugged her gently, feeling the weight of the day and the fragile hope it carried. "Yes, Lila, we will find a way. You have already given me a family, and I promise I will never let that go." In the weeks that followed, Elena began visiting the ranch more openly. With the Hawthornes' cautious approval, she helped with chores, learned more about the animals, and even began to teach Lila simple lessons about nature and care. The bond between them grew stronger, and Elena felt a sense of stability returning to her life. Yet she knew that there were still challenges ahead. The world could be unkind, and she had no guarantee that her circumstances would change overnight. But she had learned that trust, kindness, and persistence could open doors that once seemed permanently closed. And with Lila by her side, she felt that anything was possible. One afternoon, as they walked along the fence, Mr. Hawthorne spoke quietly to Elena. "You have done well, Elena. I can see the goodness in your heart. Lila is lucky to have you in her life." Elena felt a lump in her throat, overwhelmed by gratitude. "Thank you," she said simply. "I just want to help and to be there for her." And in that moment she realized something she had never allowed herself to believe before, that a future filled with warmth, trust, and love was possible even for someone who had once been hungry, cold. The story of Elena and Lila was no longer just about survival. It was about the power of connection, the courage to trust again, and the beginnings of a family born not from circumstance, but from care, respect, and love. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Elena knew that this was only the beginning of a life she had once thought impossible. The morning sun shone softly over the ranch, casting long golden rays across the wide green fields. Elena stood near the fence, watching Lila play with the horses. The sight filled her with a sense of peace and wonder she had not known in years. For the first time, she felt like she truly belonged somewhere, even if she had not yet fully realized it. The days of wandering the streets, cold, hungry, and invisible, felt distant now, almost like a shadow of a life she had once lived. Lila ran toward her, giggling, her small hands holding a handful of wildflowers she had picked from the meadow. "Mama, look! Aren't they beautiful?" Elena smiled, taking the flowers carefully. "They are beautiful, Lila, just like you." The child beamed, her eyes sparkling. She had grown even more confident in recent days, excited to show Elena everything she loved about the ranch and her life there. But it was not just the child who had changed. Eleanor herself had grown in ways she had never imagined. She had learned patience, trust, and the quiet joy of simply being needed. She had found a sense of purpose again, and with it, the strength to rebuild her life. After a morning of play and laughter, they walked together to the house. Mrs. Saber, Hawthorne greeted them at the door with a warm smile, carrying a tray of fresh sandwiches and a small pitcher of juice. "Good morning, Elena," she said kindly. "I thought you might like something to eat before the day gets busy." Elena's eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Mrs. Hawthorne." "That is very kind of you." The family had slowly opened their hearts to her, and the cautious trust that had begun in Part 4 had blossomed into something more stable. Mr. Hawthorne had offered her a place to rest in the barn when she needed shelter, and she had even begun helping with light chores around the property. Each day brought new opportunities, and Elena felt a sense of purpose that she had not felt in a long time. After breakfast, Lila tugged at Elena's hand. "Mama, come with me. I want to show you something." She led Elena to a small garden near the back of the house where colorful flowers and neatly planted vegetables grew. Lila had been learning about gardening at school, and she wanted Elena to see her progress. Elena knelt beside her, helping to gently water the plants. "You've done a wonderful job, Lila," she said. "Look at how healthy these flowers are." Lila smiled proudly. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mama. You teach me so many things." Elena's heart swelled with pride and love. She had longed to care for someone again, and now she realized that she was not only teaching Lila, but learning from her as well. The bond between them had grown into something deep and meaningful, a relationship built on trust, care, and the kind of love that could heal even the most wounded heart. As the days passed, Elena became more involved with the Hawthorne family. She helped Lila with schoolwork, assisted in the kitchen, and even learned how to ride a horse under careful supervision. Each moment strengthened her confidence and sense of belonging. She had a place where she was welcomed, appreciated, and needed, not just as a guest, but as a member of the family in spirit. One afternoon, Mr. Hawthorne called Elena aside. "Elena," he said gently, "we've been watching how well you've adapted and how much Lila trusts you. We would like to offer you something more permanent." Elena's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" she asked cautiously. "We would like you to stay with us at the ranch," Mr. Hawthorne explained. "Not just when Lila is here, but as part of our household. You don't have to worry about finding a place to sleep or where your next meal will come from. We've seen how kind and responsible you are, and we believe you belong here." Elena felt a rush of emotion she could not fully contain. Tears filled her eyes, and she nodded slowly, her voice trembling. I don't know what to say. I never thought I could belong somewhere again. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart." Hawthorne joined them, placing a hand gently on Elena's shoulder. "You've proven that you are trustworthy and kind. Lila adores you, and so do we. This is your home now, if you want it." Elena swallowed hard, feeling a warmth spread through her chest that no amount of cold or hunger could have ever given her. She thought of the long nights on the streets, the hunger that had gnawed at her, and the loneliness that had once seemed endless. And now, here she was, offered a place to stay, a family who cared for her, and a chance to rebuild her life from the ground up. "I would love that," she said finally, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I would love to stay." Lila ran into her arms, hugging her tightly. "I knew it. You're my mama forever now," she exclaimed. Elena hugged her back, feeling a bond so strong it seemed to fill every empty corner of her heart. The days that followed were filled with joy, learning, and laughter. Elena settled into her new life at the ranch, helping with chores, caring for the horses, and spending quality time with Lila. She even began to write in the notebook Lila had given her, recording her thoughts, stories, and memories for the first time in years. Writing became a way to heal, to process the past, and to imagine a future she had never thought possible. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Elena stood with Lila on the porch of the ranch house. The air was filled with the smell of fresh grass, blooming flowers, and the distant scent of the stables. Lila leaned against her, whispering, "Mama, I'm so happy you're here. I love you." Elena's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of joy. "I love you too, Lila," she whispered. "You've given me a family when I thought I would never have one again. You've given me hope, and for that, I will always be grateful." And Mr. Hawthorne joined them on the porch, smiling warmly. "We are glad you are here, Elena," Mrs. Hawthorne said. "You are a part of our family now." Elena felt a sense of completeness she had never known. The days of hunger, fear, and loneliness were behind her. She had found kindness in a small child, trust in a family, and hope within herself. Life was no longer a struggle for mere survival. It was filled with purpose, love, and the joy of giving and receiving care. Over time, Elena became more than just a friend to Lila. She became a mentor, a teacher, and a guiding presence in the child's life. She helped Lila learn new things about the world, shared stories of her past, and taught lessons about compassion and resilience. In turn, Lila's curiosity and innocence reminded Elena of the beauty in small joys, the magic in everyday life, and the importance of hope. The ranch became a place of laughter and growth. Elena helped with the animals, tended the garden, and even joined Lila in reading lessons. Each day strengthened the bond between them and reinforced the feeling of belonging that Elena had once thought impossible. She had a home now, not because of wealth or status, but because of kindness, trust, and the love she had nurtured with Lila and the Hawthorns. One afternoon, as Elena walked through the fields with Lila running ahead, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the days of hunger and cold, the nights spent alone on the streets, and the feeling of invisibility that had once defined her existence. And yet, here she was, embraced by a family who saw her worth, loved her, and trusted her. She realized that life had a way of surprising people, of offering hope when it was needed most, and of creating new beginnings from the smallest acts of kindness. Elena knelt in the grass beside Lila, picking a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Look at these, Mama," Lila said, offering them to her. "They're just like the flowers we planted in the garden." Elena smiled, taking the flowers and holding them close. "They're beautiful," she said softly. "Just like today, and just like this moment." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the ranch, Elena felt a sense of peace she had never known. She had been lost and hungry, wandering through life with nothing but hope as her guide. Now, she had food, shelter, a family, and a child who called her Mama with love and trust. Her heart was full, and for the first time in years, she felt truly safe and happy. Elena realized that family was not always defined by blood or wealth. It was defined by care, trust, and the willingness to see the best in each other. Lila had given her that gift, and the Hawthorns had embraced it. Together, they had created a family built not on circumstance, but on love and understanding. And as night fell, with stars beginning to twinkle in the sky, Elena whispered a quiet promise to herself, to always care for Lila, to always nurture the bond they had formed, and to never forget the kindness that had brought her back from the shadows. She had found her place in the world, and it was a place filled with warmth, hope, and love. The journey from the streets to the ranch had been long and difficult, but Elena knew that she had finally arrived where she was meant to be. She held Lila's hand, feeling the strength of their connection, and knew that together they could face anything life had to offer. For the first time in a long time, Elena felt truly home.